Long before anyone could remember, the land learned to listen. It listened to footsteps pressed into red soil, to prayers whispered into fire, to tears absorbed by the earth at night. The elders said the land never forgot anything. Every joy stayed. Every injustice lingered. Every curse, whether real or imagined, found a place to rest. That was why the people feared curses. And that was why they feared Nyame. Nyame was born on a night when the village drums were silent. No celebration marked her arrival. No songs welcomed her spirit. Instead, thunder rolled across the sky like a warning, and rain fell so heavily it washed away the footprints of those who ran for shelter. Before sunrise, her mother was gone. The women said it was unnatural. A child who enters the world through death, they whispered, carries death with her. Nyame's father did not argue. He did not cry loudly. He simply held his daughter and stared at the ground, as if the earth itself had betrayed him. By the time Nyame learned to walk, her fate had already been decided by mouths she never heard speaking. She grew up with eyes on her back. If she laughed too loudly, people went quiet. If she walked too close, conversations ended. Mothers pulled their children aside, pretending it was accidental. No one ever said the word curse to her face, but she felt it everywhere, in the way food was shared, in the way elders avoided blessing her, in the way silence followed her like a shadow. Nyame learned early not to ask questions. She learned to lower her eyes. To move carefully. To take up as little space as possible. She worked harder than anyone else, hoping usefulness might soften fear. She swept compounds that were not hers. She carried water for women who would not touch the pot after she set it down. Still, misfortune followed the village, as misfortune always does. When crops failed, people remembered Nyame had passed through the fields. When sickness came, they recalled seeing her at the stream days before. Every coincidence tightened the knot of belief around her name. By the time she became a young woman, Nyame had accepted her role. She was the one people blamed quietly. Then came Kato. Kato returned to the village after many years away, taller than memory allowed and carrying the confidence of someone who had seen more of the world than his birthplace. He had left as a boy and returned as a man, his laughter louder, his eyes curious. He noticed Nyame because he noticed everything. Where others looked away, he looked closer. Where others whispered, he asked questions. The first time he spoke to her, she assumed he was mistaken. "You dropped this," he said, holding out a woven cloth she hadn't realized had fallen. She stared at it, then at him, confused. No one usually spoke to her unless they had to. "Thank you," she replied softly, expecting him to leave. He didn't. They spoke again days later. Then again after that. Simple words at first. About the weather. About the land. About the silence people carried like a second skin. Nyame tried to keep distance. She warned him without warning him. She told him what people said. What they believed. Kato listened. And then he smiled. "I see a woman," he said. "Not a curse." Love did not arrive suddenly. It arrived carefully. It arrived in shared walks, in laughter kept low, in hands that touched briefly and pulled away too soon. Nyame resisted it at first. Hope was dangerous. Hope had a way of making loss deeper. But Kato was patient. He did not promise protection. He did not speak of changing the village. He only stayed. When love finally claimed them, it did so quietly, like the earth accepting rain. The village noticed. It always did. Whispers returned, sharper than before. This time, fear had a name. Kato's family was respected. His future was already written in the minds of the elders. A woman like Nyame was not part of it. Warnings were issued. Advice disguised as concern. Threats wrapped in tradition. Kato was told to choose. He chose Nyame. That choice changed everything. The illness came suddenly. One child fell sick. Then another. Then an elder. Panic spread faster than reason. The village needed answers, and answers needed a face. Nyame was dragged before the council. No proof was demanded. No defense allowed. Fear spoke louder than truth. She was born from death. She carries darkness. She has always been the sign. The words fell one after another, heavy and final, like stones dropped into water. Each accusation stirred murmurs of agreement among the gathered villagers. Some nodded in fear. Others looked away, unwilling to meet Nyame's eyes. No one spoke in her defense. Except Kato. He stepped forward, his voice trembling but unbroken. He reminded them of the times Nyame had helped without being asked, of the seasons when misfortune had come and gone long before her birth. He begged them to remember kindness, to remember reason, to remember that coincidence was not guilt. His voice rose and cracked. Still, he spoke. But fear is louder than truth when people are desperate. The elders shook their heads slowly. Their faces were carved with certainty, their hearts already closed. To them, the decision had been made long before the council gathered. They declared that Nyame must leave the village. Exile was mercy, they said. Mercy for her life. Mercy for the people. Mercy for the land. Nyame listened in silence. She did not scream. She did not plead. She did not cry. She had shed those tears many seasons ago, alone and unheard. In that moment, something inside her settled, not peace, but acceptance. At dawn, she walked away. No farewell followed her steps. No blessing softened the road ahead. She carried nothing but her breath, her memories, and the quiet understanding that the place she had called home had never truly claimed her as its own. Kato ran after her. He called her name until his voice echoed against the trees. He swore he would leave everything behind, family, future, honor, if only he could walk beside her. They stopped him. Hands held his arms. Voices reminded him of duty. He watched helplessly as Nyame disappeared into the distance, her figure swallowed by the forest, carrying a love he could not protect. Years passed. The village waited for relief. It never came. The sickness returned, slow and unforgiving. Crops failed again, just as they always had. Children were born into the same fear their parents had inherited. Marriages grew tense. Trust thinned. The land remained restless. Slowly, doubt crept in. If the curse was gone, why did suffering remain? Far from the village, Nyame learned how to survive. She wandered until she found people who did not fear her silence. Healers who looked at her hands and saw skill, not darkness. Elders who taught her that curses created by humans are not spoken by the ancestors. She learned the language of herbs and roots. She learned stories buried by time and twisted by fear. She learned that long ago, her mother had been accused unjustly, punished not for wrongdoing, but for standing alone. The curse, she realized, had never lived in her blood. It lived in injustice. Nyame grew into someone the village had never allowed her to become. She became a healer. People traveled long distances to find her. Mothers brought their children. Elders sought her wisdom. Where she went, sickness eased. Where she stayed, peace followed. Her name, once whispered with suspicion, was spoken with gratitude. Then one day, messengers arrived. The village was dying. Nyame returned without anger in her steps. She walked into the place that had rejected her with calm in her eyes and steadiness in her hands. The elders bowed their heads. The people wept openly. She healed without accusation. She forgave without being asked. The truth was finally spoken aloud. There had never been a curse. only fear. Kato stood before her once more, older now, quieter, but loving her in the same way. This time, no one stood between them. No voices rose in judgment. No chains held him back. Nyame chose to stay. Not because the village deserved her, but because healing required presence. The land listened. And for the first time in generations, it rested. Nyame, once called a curse, became the blessing that saved them all.